Have you ever heard a sound that wasn't there? Felt a pressure in your head that no one else could explain? For hundreds of American and Canadian officials around the world, this wasn't just a fleeting sensation. It was the beginning of a terrifying and baffling ordeal that came to be known as Havana Syndrome. It all started in late 2016, in the vibrant historic city of Havana, Cuba. US and Canadian embassy staff began reporting a series of bizarre and debilitating symptoms. They described hearing strange, piercing sounds, sometimes directional, localized to specific rooms or even parts of rooms. One person might hear an intense grinding or buzzing, while someone sitting just a few feet away heard nothing at all. The sounds were often followed by an onslaught of physical ailments: intense headaches, dizziness, nausea, vertigo, and problems with balance. Even more frightening were the cognitive effects: memory loss, difficulty concentrating, and what many described as a persistent brain fog. Doctors were stumped. Initial examinations revealed no obvious cause. Scans showed nothing out of the ordinary, yet the symptoms were real and, in some cases, long-lasting. Some individuals were forced to cut their diplomatic tours short, returning home with injuries that seemed to have no physical origin. The mystery deepened as the number of cases grew, not just in Havana, but spreading across the globe. Diplomats and intelligence officers in China, Russia, Austria, Germany, and even on US soil in Washington, D.C., began reporting the same strange constellation of symptoms. What was happening? Was this a coordinated attack? A new form of espionage? Or something else entirely? The search for an answer launched one of the most perplexing investigations of the 21st century, pulling in experts from medicine, neuroscience, engineering, and intelligence. One of the earliest and most prominent theories was the use of a directed energy weapon. The idea sounds like something straight out of a science fiction movie, but it's grounded in real-world research. The leading suspect was microwave energy. The theory goes that a hostile actor could use a portable device to beam focused microwave radiation at a target. This energy could, in theory, interact with the soft tissues of the head, causing a phenomenon known as the Frey Effect, where microwaves induce a perception of sound inside the skull. This could explain the strange noises the victims reported, as well as the subsequent neurological symptoms, by essentially cooking or disrupting brain tissue. This theory gained traction when a 2020 report by the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine concluded that directed pulsed radiofrequency energy was the most plausible explanation for the symptoms. It seemed to fit the facts: a targeted, invisible force that could cause specific, localized effects. The implications were chilling. If a foreign power possessed such a weapon, it represented a new, terrifying form of invisible warfare, one that could injure people from a distance without leaving a trace. The hunt was on for the who and the why. Suspicion naturally fell on longtime US adversaries, with some intelligence officials pointing fingers, albeit covertly, at Russia, a country known for its research into this very technology. But the microwave weapon theory wasn't without its problems. Many physicists and engineers were skeptical. They argued that the amount of power needed to cause brain damage from a distance would be enormous and would likely cause more obvious signs, like skin burns. Furthermore, creating a device that was both portable and powerful enough to penetrate buildings and cause these effects presented significant technical challenges. How could an attacker precisely target an individual inside an embassy without affecting anyone else or being detected? As the evidence, or lack thereof, was scrutinized, the directed energy theory, while compelling, remained unproven. The smoking gun, the weapon itself, was nowhere to be found. As doubts about the weapon theory grew, another, equally fascinating explanation emerged: mass psychogenic illness. This is a phenomenon where symptoms of a disease spread through a group of people, even though there's no physical cause. It's sometimes called mass hysteria, but it's not about people making it up. The physical symptoms, the headaches, the nausea, the dizziness, are very real. They're just triggered by psychological factors, like extreme stress and the power of suggestion rather than a pathogen or a weapon. Think about the environment these diplomats were in. They were working in high-stress jobs in foreign countries, often under constant surveillance. The initial reports from Havana created a climate of fear and anxiety. When a colleague reported strange symptoms, others might become hyper-aware of their own bodies. A normal headache or a moment of dizziness could suddenly be interpreted as a sign of the mysterious syndrome. In this view, the sound could have been a misinterpretation of a common local insect, like the Indies short-tailed cricket, which produces a loud, high-frequency chirp that some acoustical experts found matched recordings from Havana. The stress of being a potential target, combined with hearing about others falling ill, could have created a perfect storm for a psychogenic event. This theory would explain why no physical cause was ever found, and why the symptoms seemed to spread to different locations as news of the syndrome traveled. However, this explanation was deeply unsatisfying, and even offensive to the victims. They weren't just stressed out. Many suffered from tangible, measurable health problems. Some medical reports eventually did find evidence of brain abnormalities, changes in white matter, and disruptions to the networks that govern hearing and balance. For example, studies from the University of Pennsylvania found differences in brain structure and connectivity in the affected diplomats compared to a healthy control group. These findings seem to contradict the idea that it was all in their heads. The people affected felt their very real suffering was being dismissed as a psychological quirk. They had been injured, they insisted, and they deserved answers, not a diagnosis that implied they were simply suggestible. The debate raged on, creating a deep rift between those who believed they were victims of an attack and those who saw a powerful but unconscious social phenomenon at play. The intelligence community itself seemed completely divided, reflecting the broader confusion. Over the years, different agencies have released conflicting assessments. In early 2022, a CIA interim report found that it was unlikely a foreign state was responsible for a sustained worldwide campaign. They suggested that most cases could be explained by pre-existing medical conditions or environmental factors. This was a major blow to those who believed they had been attacked. Yet, just a year later, another assessment from a different part of the intelligence community concluded with low to moderate confidence that the injuries could have been caused by an external energy source. The official position remains murky and contradictory, leaving victims and the public in a state of limbo. Is it a weapon? Is it a psychological phenomenon? Or is it something we haven't even considered? This lack of a definitive answer has turned Havana Syndrome into a modern-day Rorschach test. For some, it's a clear case of geopolitical aggression, a new front in a covert war fought with invisible weapons. They see the government's vacillation as a cover-up, an attempt to avoid escalating a conflict with a powerful adversary like Russia or China. For others, it's a cautionary tale about the power of the mind and the social contagion of fear in our hyper-connected, high-anxiety world. In this view, the mystery isn't about microwaves, but about how our brains interpret threats and how suggestion can create real physical illness. The story of Havana Syndrome is more than just an unsolved medical mystery. It touches on some of the most profound questions of our time. It forces us to confront the possibility of new forms of warfare that blur the line between physical attack and psychological manipulation. It challenges our understanding of the relationship between the mind and the body, showing how one can profoundly affect the other. And it raises unsettling questions about truth and trust. When our own government can't provide a clear answer, and when the very symptoms are questioned, who do you believe? What really happened to those diplomats in Havana and beyond? Were they the first casualties of a 21st century invisible weapon? Or were they caught in a powerful wave of collective anxiety, their bodies manifesting the stress of a dangerous world? Perhaps the most unsettling possibility is that we may never know for sure. The Havana Syndrome remains a ghost in the machine of global politics, a puzzle with missing pieces, leaving us to wonder what other invisible forces might be shaping our world right under our noses or right inside our heads. Thanks for watching. If you found this mystery as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into unexplained phenomena, and let me know your theory in the comments below. What do you think is the real story behind Havana Syndrome? See you next time.